Sometimes you are in a field that is very competitive. You are trying to do research and you are trying to beat the other group. And one way of making sure that the other group is not progressing very well is when you explain what you did, you omit details. Right? So when they try to do it, they are screwed. And it doesn't work. Inadequate record keeping. We talked a little bit about that already. Inappropriately assigning authorship credit. Okay? You did all the work, but your friend here, he is very nice to you, she's very nice to you, so you put the name on a paper or something. You are aware of research that contradicts your own model, and you don't say anything about it. Your friend here, you know, she never does anything. She makes stuff up. But you don't say anything because otherwise you will get in trouble or something. You are studying tobacco, the effect on health. You find that people die, but Philip Morris is paying you. So you say, it's perfectly fine. You should actually increase your intake of tobacco. That's not very good. And finally, publishing the same data or results in 2 or more publications. That's also not acceptable. All right, so what are we going to do today? Today we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to listen to a small piece of audio from Science Friday about how research ethics, how research misconduct affects science, how it affects the scientific record. Takes about 10 minutes. And then for the rest of the time, we're going to read a small article on Nature, and we're going to discuss. Some of you, chemistry people, are going to be here next week, and this is what we're going to do. Are the engineers going to be here next week too? All right, so everybody's going to come here next week. We have a case study, and we're going to be working on the case study next week. Next week you won't hear me talk, hardly at all. Okay? Sorry to disappoint you. Right. So let's start then listening to the podcast from Science Friday. Are you going to record that too?
I don't have to.
Well, I can give you the file.
Giving me the file. Yeah. Okay, I'll start.
Bye-bye, YouTube people.
All right.
About what we just heard. Basically, I want to hear from you now. What do you think then is the main problem with when people behave unethically in the field of research? And I didn't mention it before, but since we probably don't know each other, say your name first, and then we.
My name's Andrew Loschek. Well, I think the biggest problem is that perhaps it could cause a huge problem with the finished product, and maybe actually do more than that. Like, for example, maybe someone might have made an alteration on the calculations for something used for like a bridge or something, and we thought that was just something small, but later on it caused the whole bridge collapse and killed a whole bunch of people. That's, I think, the big, and that's, I think, the big problem.
Any comments to the comment or any additions? Or? Well, if you don't talk, I'm going to talk. So. Alright, so I'm going to talk a little bit about changes to the final product. He talks like an engineer. Not all of you here are going to be doing research, but you're going to be affected by that. You're going to be engineers, or you're going to be dentists, or medical doctors, or whatever. So stuff that is done in this field can affect your product. Heck, the ethics that you learn here can apply whether you're going to be doing research or whether you're going to be doing something else. And the problem is the integrity of the scientific record. Right? If you do something that you think, well, it's no big deal, but then somebody may pick on that, and then they start working based on that faulty data, and they reach the wrong conclusions. We heard, for instance, the case of breast cancer research that was affected by manipulation. Another thing I want to say, though, is the issue. This guy could talk a lot about things that we talked before. He also talked about carelessness. Carelessness, as a matter of fact, is not an ethics problem. So it's not. If you do, for instance, write a paper and you are careless about the stuff, you are not going to get in trouble for that. But it does affect the record as well. So that's why the guy was concerned. All right. So since you guys don't want to talk, what the heck? Let's do then an activity here. We have about 15 minutes or so. So in the last 15 minutes, I'm going to give you a paper, the paper they were talking about, and we're going to read it, and we're going to discuss it. So the first thing that I want you to do is get the paper, find yourself 3 other friends. You're going to work in groups. So get in groups of about 4, and make sure you can see each other and be close to each other. So some of you may want to turn around or move your chairs or whatever. All right. Do all of you have a copy of the paper? You just don't have friends. All right. Very good. Do all of you have a copy of the paper? Anybody needs a copy of the paper? All right. So listen for directions before you start doing stuff. I do not want you to spend all the time here reading the paper. You can read all the paper at home if you want. So I want you to read the first section until the stepping in section. Okay, so I want you to read that stuff. I want you to read the outcomes, so that is the graph in the back. I want you to read the teachable moments. So I want you to read those sections. Once you finish reading those sections, if you want to read the other stuff at home, I would like you to do that, but I'm not going to be in your room checking on you. But I want you to read those sections now. And you're going to discuss those sections with your friends. Okay? Specifically, I want you to think of what of the different things that people do that are naughty. I want you to discuss which ones you think are more naughty than others, naughtier than others. Okay? And I want also to discuss the ways that people use to address these issues when they find them, and see if you would feel comfortable using some of those techniques to talk to somebody who is doing something not so nice. Okay? So you have about 10 minutes, and then we'll have 5 minutes for a discussion here for the whole group. Right? Dr. Harris couldn't find a friend.
That's right.
So he had to talk to himself.
You should have said something.
That's right. He should have.
I was
But
pouting.
he was pouting indeed, crying in the corner because he didn't have a pencil.
That's
He can tell you that story someday.
This is a pretty fun story.
All right. Let's see. So, Marie already want to tell us what pisses her off the most.
I know one thing that really stood out to me.
Speak up a little bit, please.
One of the things that really stood out to me was it said in the outcomes of interventions, it said less than 1% of the concern turned out to be unwarranted. Like that was what was reported, and I thought that was really interesting because if I see something going wrong, the biggest fear I have is that I would be wrong. So it just shows that you're probably right if there is concern.
Okay. Very good. You can follow up on that line, or you can comment on the stuff that bothers you, or actually what bothered your group. Really. Orion wants to speak up. Loud, please.
All right.
Manly voice.
I think what bothered me the most was the incompetence. I mean, like, if you're incompetent and don't know how to analyze the data, like, why are you doing research in the first place to help the rest of the scientific community? Like, you have to know what you're doing to even do it. So the incompetence thing just seems like it shouldn't even exist there. That's what bothered me the most. I say.
Matt wants to add a point. Speak up a little bit, please.
Something that was rather interesting, I guess, funny in not aha kind of way, but when I'm looking at the graph about the feelings after intervening, if you were to add up the sections of the dissatisfied sections, extremely dissatisfied and dissatisfied, and the people who are satisfied
So you're saying that they are more or less the same.
Yeah.
Let's see, the group that sponsors this session, I would like them to talk a little bit about that too.
Okay, well, this is my opinion, we kind of disagree a little bit, but I thought that like the worst, like, we were talking about like things you could do, I thought like the worst one was like intentional bias, like fabricating your own results to meet an idea that you have, because if you end up publishing that, someone can build off of your research and publish other things that are false, and it's kind of like a snowball effect, and you can just keep going and keep getting worse.
So, for instance, we have talked about two issues: the incompetence, the falsification. I mean, how do you think they affect the scientific record? Do you think that one is worse than the other in terms of how science is going to be recorded for the future? And Seth already have his hand up. So.
I mean, I think they're both bad because what it does is it just discredits the scientific community. If you do these acts, then people are going to hear about them, like they'll read in the paper or see them on the internet, and then they're going to lose respect for like actual people who are doing real research, and they're not going to think that what we're doing has any merit to it, because most of we're going into plagiarism and things like that. So I think it really discredits the scientific community. It's bad.
Yeah, right. You hear that all the time, right? A study says you have to eat more vitamin A. A study says that vitamin A is bad for you. The next study, right? So people say, "What the hell should I do?" Those guys don't know anything. I'll stick to my pipe, right? So that makes a big difference. All right. We seem to be running out of time. Do you have questions? I should have asked this before and I can forget. Do you have any questions, folks? So do read this if you have an occasion. Maybe you are in the bathroom and you have no better reading. So read it. Next week we'll talk about a specific case. So this is going to come a little handy when we discuss things on Friday. All right. Have a nice weekend. Don't get in trouble. Don't go to the bars.